Hey y'all, it's Ashley at Bookish Realm, and we are on day 13 of Vlogmas. We are officially halfway through. I can't believe it. We were at the halfway mark, and it feels so good to be sitting here and saying that I have officially made it halfway through Vlogmas, and the first half wasn't that bad. So I think if we could just keep the same energy going, I definitely am going to be able to finish all 25 days. So as you can see from the title of this video, these are some of my favorite graphic novels, manga, and comics. So this is kind of a sub-genre that we really just don't talk about a lot in the community. I think that there are a couple of titles that really gain some traction and everybody ends up talking about them, but for the most part I think that this is not a well-known part of the booktube community. There are some amazing people out there that I know that read great manga, that read great comics, great graphic novels, but as a whole I wish it was something that we did read a little bit more of. So today I thought I would give you some of my favorites in this category. Unfortunately, we are not going to go through all of my favorites because it's just impossible, alright? There's no way I could cover all of my favorites and do this in a responsible amount of time. So we're going to cover, I think, anywhere in between 15 to 18 of my favorites, and I hope that maybe some of these interest you and you want to check them out. So the reason that I came up with this video is that I thought of the holiday song My Favorite Things, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, where she's making the list of her favorite things, and I was like, well, I could just make a list of my favorite graphic novel, comics, and manga, like duh, easy. So as with all the other videos that I've done, let's go through and talk a little bit about the song, which this one's interesting. My favorite things, I wanted to say these are a few of my favorite things, but the song is actually called My Favorite Things. And this is actually a show tune from the 1959 musical The Sound of Music, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. However, the question is always, how did this song become a holiday song? And what ended up happening is, as we all know, Julie Andrews played Maria in the 1965 film version. Prior to her actually participating in the film version, she sung the song on the 1961 Christmas special for the Gary Moore Show. So when she sang it, of course there are references to holiday-like things within the song, but it officially became a holiday song staple after that performance. So this song has been covered by many, and if you did not know, it has been recently and famously used in Ariana Grande's song Seven Rings. Alright y'all, so now for the books. The first one that I have on this list, of course I could not make this list without having this book. There are going to be a couple on here that none of you should be surprised about because I talk about them all the time. So the first one, of course, is Food War Shokugeki no Soma by Yuto Tsukuda, one of the best shonen manga that I have ever read, one of my favorite shonen manga, and this specifically focuses on a character by the name of Soma who gets entered into this elite Japanese cooking school, and they all compete to reach the elite 10, which is 10 positions, or the council of 10, whatever it may be called, but there are 10 positions that everybody covets, and that's everybody's end goal, and to end up in a restaurant, either, you know, head chef, owning the restaurant, but somewhere in the food industry. And this kind of just chronicles their journey. If you like Iron Chef and you're a foodie and you like just competitions in food, this is definitely the manga for you to check out. It is a little fan service heavy in the beginning, but I feel like it kind of eases up a little bit towards the middle, and it's not so prominent, but I'm telling you right now, there is definitely a lot of fan service in the beginning, a lot of fan service, but great manga, great anime. If you've never heard of it, definitely check it out. The next one that I have here is The Devil is a Part-Timer by Satoshi Wagahara, and this one actually is about a demon lord that gets stripped of his powers, and it's him and I think like his first in command end up getting sent to modern day Tokyo with no powers whatsoever, and the hero, which is her, that actually brought them them down is also in the world with them. And it's funny because he ends up actually working at like this restaurant that's kind of, I guess, based off of McDonald's, and he ends up really enjoying his job. But the two of them get into modern day Tokyo and they battle, but then they realize that someone is actually trying to kill both of them. So it kind of takes off from there. I really enjoyed the anime. This is actually based on a light novel series. So this was a light novel first before it became a manga, but I first heard about it because of the anime, and then I started reading the manga, and it's really good. It's hilarious. I cannot wait to read the rest of the volumes. If you've never heard of The Devil is a Part-Timer, I definitely would recommend checking it out. Y'all should have known that this one was coming next. Of course, I have Nana by Aizawa. This is such a good josei manga. Love it. Got me through some of the most difficult periods in my life. I was determined to finish the entire series that is out because it's technically on hiatus, but it's not going to happen this year. I just don't see it happening. There's no way that I mean, if I want it to be crazy, I'm sure I can make it happen, but I'm not gonna do that. So this focuses on two characters by the name of Nana, and they both are headed to Tokyo to live their lives. This is definitely more so just about their journey and them being really close friends. There are parts of this manga that will make you smile and laugh, and there are parts of this manga that will make you cry and leave you completely heartbroken. It's just really great. I know everybody keeps asking me, have I seen the live action of Nana yet? I have not. I still haven't even finished the anime because I have just been dying to finish the manga series first. If you've never read Nana, please read it, y'all. This is one of my favorite manga of all time, hands down, and so underappreciated low-key, so definitely check it out. Next on this list, I have The Promised Neverland by Kaoru Shira. I feel like I always say this wrong, but The Promised Neverland is one that I just read this year and was so surprised by how good this first volume was. Literally left my mouth on the floor because I was like, oh, this is gonna be some cutesy manga about these kids that live in this orphanage and they're gonna go on these fantasy journeys and it's gonna be cute, and oh my god, it's not. It's not that. I can't even tell you what it is because it will ruin the whole thing. I can't tell you anything about it, but it's not what you think it is. And this cover is very misleading. I don't know if anybody felt that way, but this is a freaking misleading cover, and it was so good because I read the first volume from the library. It was so good that I went and bought the first 2 volumes because I was like, I have to have these because this series is phenomenal. And if you have not checked this out, go into it blind. Don't read reviews, don't look at anything, just check it out. Next, I have Fables Legend in Exile by Bill Willingham. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone either. I am a junkie for fables. So this is a fairy tale retelling series about these fable characters that have moved from their land to ours in New York, and they're undercover and they pose as humans, but they're not really humans, and they have come to our world because they are attempting to escape the adversary. And as a reader, you learn eventually who the adversary is, and it is probably one of the craziest reveals ever. But this is such a long and complex comic book series, but hands down definitely like one of my favorite, and I highly recommend this to anyone who is a fan of fairy tale retellings. It is an older series. I know some people aren't necessarily a fan of the artwork, but I love it. I absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Next, I have The Wicked and the Divine, The False Act. This is volume 1. I have read probably up to volume 4 in this series. And this series is about a group of gods that come back every 90 years, live for 2 years, and then end up dying. So what ends up happening in this one is that we follow a fan of these gods because they essentially become like pop culture icons, and we follow this through the lens of one of their fans, and she goes to a concert to meet one of the gods. She ends up meeting Lucy, who in all terms is a reincarnation of Lucifer, and Lucy apparently has been accused of killing some people, although she believes that someone is just trying to set her up. So our main character spends a great portion of this comic book trying to figure out who has done it. And the artwork in this is absolutely stunning. Some of the best artwork that I have seen in a comic book series, but it does get a little tedious in some volumes, but definitely a great fantasy series to check out, especially if you're interested in like myth, legends, and folklore, because there are gods and goddesses from so many different cultural backgrounds, so many different periods of time, and it's such a great diverse set of characters. Next I have Zodiac Star Force, and this is by Kevin Panetta, and this is volume 1 by The Power of Astra. I remember when I was reading this actually as single issues. It's about these group of girls who are sworn to protect the world through powers that are kind of attributed to astrological signs, and this definitely reminds me a little bit of Sailor Moon. They're different, but it does kind of have that vibe to it, and I loved it. I love this. There's so much great friendship in this. There's great explorations of possible queer relationships, and I think that it's just done very well. The artwork is very bright and colorful, and I'm just hoping that we get something besides just a volume 2, because I think there's only 2 volumes out. I don't know if there's going to be a 3rd volume, but I am hoping that we get a 3rd volume, because this is such an underrated comic book series, but such a well done comic book series. Next I have Bingo Love by T. Franklin, and this is a small one-shot comic book series, because this is it. This was done by, I believe Image did this one. Yeah, this is like an exclusive, like kind of one-shot comic. We just have this bind up and that's it. And this focuses on 2 black women who end up falling in love from the time that they are young adults, and we get to follow their past and see where they are, you know, combined together, where they may start to kind of go their separate ways. It is so impactful, so powerful. It is a great representation of queer black love, and one that I think a lot of people definitely should be reading. And I don't want to tell you anything else about it, just definitely pick it up. The artwork in this is also really great. I think that if you're looking for stellar artwork that features black characters in a comic book, this is one to also check out. And the next one that I have on this list is Miss Marvel, and I'm talking about Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel and the G. Willow Wilson run specifically. This is so good. This is really good. I love Miss Marvel. I specifically love Miss Marvel when it was done by G. Willow Wilson. Since G. Willow Wilson completed 10 volumes of it, I think that someone else has picked it up and we're looking at a different run of it. But I love what G. Willow Wilson did with her as a Muslim Pakistani girl living in New Jersey, trying to just navigate her community and navigate being a superhero. We see so many ups and downs with her as a character. I've read all 10 volumes by G. Willow Wilson, and I need to do a reread of all 10 of those volumes. But we just get to see so much of Kamala Khan's life and friendships and relationships and combating racism and poverty and just villains and falling out with the Avengers. It's just such a great comic book series. So if you're interested in learning more about Miss Marvel, I definitely would check out the G. Willow Wilson run first and give those a read. The next one that I have is I Hate Fairyland, and this was done by Scotty Young, I believe. I'm kind of going off the top of my head, so if I'm wrong, you'll see the right name on the cover. But I Hate Fairyland focuses on this woman by the name of Gertrude, who as a child was sent to Fairyland like all children are, and she gets stuck there for some reason. Unlike all the other children, she can't complete the task that she needs in order to get out of fairyland. She has a horrible experience. So when you meet her as a character, she looks like she's 8 years old, but she's like 30 something years old, stuck in an 8-year-old's body. And this one is just funny. It's gory, it's raunchy, it's raw, it's everything that I could hope for in a comic book, and this is definitely not for kids. I mean, the first page of the first volume is Gertrude flicking you off. So if you're looking for something that has a little bit more crude humor, I definitely would recommend I Hate Fairyland. Next, I have Black Panther, the run that has been done by Ta-Nehisi Coates. If you're looking for a place to start with Black Panther, because at this point I feel like most people are clearly aware of his origin story, but if you're looking for a place to start with his story, I definitely would recommend starting with the Ta-Nehisi Coates run. It is a good run of it. I have read a couple other runs of Black Panther. Black Panther has made appearances in Marvel Comics a lot earlier than I think people think, but if you are looking for a place to jump in, then I would recommend checking out this specific part of his story. Next, I have Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. This is one of my favorite graphic novels or nonfiction graphic memoirs of all time. This chronicles Marjane's experience growing up in Iran during the Iranian Revolution and eventually leaving Iran and going abroad, and the experiences that she had going abroad compared to her life growing up in Iran, and kind of really looking at the history of Iran and how I think that Western powers always have these perceptions, and we teach people these perceptions of Iran without really getting into the nitty-gritty history of how Western powers invaded this country and tried to monopolize this country for its oil and left it in shambles. So great look into this. If you've never seen the film adaptation of it, it is in French, but there are subtitles if you are a native English speaker that doesn't speak French, and it's one of my favorite animated films of all time, and definitely one of my favorite, like I said, non-fiction graphic memoirs of all time. I am in the process of currently reading this for like the 4th time because I love it so much, but yeah, definitely check it out. Next, I have Lock and Key. This is not the first volume in Lock and Key. This is actually an add-on. It is called Small World, which is, I don't even really know what it adds to Lock and Key, but I think I got this as a discount a long time ago. But Lock and Key is a horror comic book series, and it is, as a comic, much grittier and darker than the TV show. I think the Netflix adaptation kind of eased up on a lot of the gore that was present in this book. It focuses on the Locke family, who has just lost the father of the family, and they move back to the Locke estate, and they come across these keys that can do all of these varied things, from transporting you from one place to another, being able to look into your mind, swapping bodies type of thing. And there is a sinister character at large that is kind of controlling some things in the background of this, and I don't want to really speak on that too much because it is a huge spoiler for the series. But if you're interested in a TV show, I kind of would recommend the comics if you're looking for the true horror gritty part of it, and not the kitty version of it, because I really do feel like they kind of made it like a CW adaptation of these comics. I don't like the adaptations at all, but this one was done by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. Next, I have Chew by John Layman and Rob Guillory. I do not know where my first volume is. It is somewhere in this house, but I don't know where. And this is about a agent by the name of Tony Chu, who has the ability to taste things and tell you exactly where they came from and how they got to that point. And it's being used as a part of the FBI, I believe. Not the CIA, I believe it's the FBI, when there's this whole crisis of poultry going on and people are not supposed to be eating chicken, and he's helping them solve murders, and he actually eats human flesh in order to help them solve those murders. And the first volume ends on this huge cliffhanger, so I definitely would recommend that if you do read this, make sure you do have a couple of volumes kind of stored up to dive into the rest of the story. Next, I have Diana, Princess of the Amazons, and this was done by Shannon Hale and Dean Hale and illustrated by Victoria Ying. This was one that I included because it is a different adaptation of Wonder Woman that we don't typically see. This focuses specifically on Diana as a child, more so than her journey in being Wonder Woman. And I think that this is a great look at how difficult it probably was for Wonder Woman to be in a situation where she is a child amongst women and there's no one there for her to play with. She is 11 years old, I believe, in the time in which this graphic novel takes place, so it's hard for her, and you get just a different perspective of her life, which I really did enjoy. This is part of DC's Zoom line, which is written for middle grade readers, so this is a great middle grade graphic novel if you're interested in introducing someone of a younger age to Wonder Woman's origin story. And the last one that I have on this list, of course, is going to be Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan. This is a comic book series that I finished this year. It's 6 volumes, really short, so if you're looking for something short to read, I definitely would recommend this series in particular. It is time travel. It takes place in the 1980s, a lot of 80s pop culture references. If you get through these volumes and you are confused, I promise you, stick with it. I am not a huge sci-fi reader, but I stuck with this and it makes sense by the time you get to volume 6. I think the first 3 volumes, you're kind of confused because you are seeing the timelines of these 4 main characters, which is 4 girls who are running a paper route. They literally are paper girls, and they're running a paper route, and they end up in situations where they may or may not be traveling across different timelines of their own lives, and there's a bigger picture at large in terms of where the narrative ends up going. But I know a lot of people get through like the first couple of volumes and they're like, I just don't get it, and that's okay. Like, you're not supposed to get it. There's a reason why you don't get it. Everything does fall into place by the time you get to volume 6. So if you're looking for a great science fiction comic book series to try out, I definitely would recommend Paper Girls. Alright y'all, so those are some comic book series, graphic novels, and manga that I really love. I hope that you will eventually check some of this stuff out. If you're not an avid comic book, graphic novel, or manga reader, these are great places to start, and some of my personal favorites. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button. If you're interested in ways to support my channel, they'll be down in the description box below. If you're looking for ways to follow me on social media, I'll be down in the description box below. And as always, I'll be back with another video tomorrow.